and I'm going to be presenting a recent event on the Morandi bridge collapse. The full name of the bridge is the Ponte Morandi, but they usually refer to it as just the Morandi Bridge. So we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about the event itself and the results of the event, and then we're going to talk about why it collapsed. But first, we need to understand the history behind it. So this guy right here, he's a civil engineer. His name is Riccardo Morandi. That's why the bridge is named it. And the bridge, he designed it, and then the bridge was built between 1963 and 1967, and it's 51 years old. And that's kind of young for a bridge, as most bridges are designed to at least stand 100 years. And we'll discuss why, but repairs, so the engineer himself, Riccardo, he later on, when the bridge after it was constructed, he even said himself that the bridge would require extreme maintenance, and that they needed to keep up on it, otherwise the bridge would collapse, and lo and behold, just earlier this year it did. So this is a picture, this is a picture before, that's before it collapsed, and that's what it looked like. And then this is after. So there's a couple of views here. So this view on the top, you see so that's kind of how it would look if you were almost like sitting on the bridge. And then the one below it, you're looking at the crumble that was on the ground. And you see a lot of excavators there. They had to do major searches and clean all that up. And they found about 43 people. 43 people died, but they found out there was a guy that his truck fell and it smashed the passenger side of the truck, and he was able just to get out with a broken arm. So some people were pretty lucky. And then there's an aerial view on the right side. So you can kind of see there's tracks there. It's a big shipping. It's located right on next to in Geneva, Italy. We're located right on the Mediterranean, and it's a big shipping port, so it comes in and out. The city alone accounts for 1.5% of Italy's GDP. So the collapse, it happened on August 14th, 2018 in Giannina, Italy, like I mentioned earlier. And then, so we're going to look at the cost. So the cost, they obviously focus in euros, but I went ahead and translated to USD to give you guys a better reference. So it's going to cost them to repair it, according to BBC and the Italian government. It'll be $172 million to $230 million. And 43 people died, and that's an extreme cost because that's the life that obviously is part of Italy. And then the 1.5% GDP, like I mentioned earlier, because of that bridge, it's such an important bridge in that city. There's a lot of shipments that go back and forth in it, and with that cutout, it slows things down. So that definitely puts an effect. And in the 5 months, so BBC and the Italian government BBC reported on it, but the Italian government is looking at a 5-month period to get it repaired because it's such an important bridge, and they have to look at all sorts of ways to restructure it because it's old and it wasn't kept up well. So there's going to be a lot of involvement, and I'll kind of talk about what they have to do. So then moving on to why the bridge collapsed. So right there you can see on the map, it shows right where it is, the city in the very top left corner. And then it shows the portion that went under. So the whole portion is about 200 meters, and the reference set, that's a little bit over 2 football fields, and it dropped 45 meters. So from the point where it was, it dropped. So that's about 147 feet. Well, that's actually a little bit more than that. I'll just kind of give you a frame of reference. So when, draw it up on the board, kind of give you an idea. So there's, on the right side, let me draw this first. So on the right side, you can see that it's showing steel supports and cables encased in concrete. So this is a common structural thing. So they'll take rebar, which is steel, to give it strength, and then they encase it in concrete. And that's one of the mistakes why it collapsed. So this here, this is the rebar in the center, and then this is the concrete. So what happens is over time, like the sidewalk, concrete cracks, and it allows things to get in there. And when this rebar, which is steel, and steel isn't naturally occurring, so it degrades, it turns into rust, like your car. So what happens is when it cracks, materials get in there and it starts to break down and it wears down. If it's not kept up well, it gets weak. So when it gets weak, it'll collapse. And that's one of the reasons why they think it collapsed. They're not 100% sure because there's different reasons. I'll talk about the weather on that specific day too. And so with that degrading, that could cause a collapse. And another reason why is, you'll see it says steel supports up there. So here, I believe I have a picture of it. Yep, right there. So on that bottom picture, it says extra steel supports in the 1990s. So the bridge was actually getting weaker around the 90s. And what happened is they added steel supports to the top. You see it's like a bracket, goes around the concrete. And that was to strengthen it because it was getting weaker and weaker. And this is the part exactly where it collapsed. So obviously, go right by it. But they did that to strengthen it. And then on the weather on that day, and I did talk about Ricardo's warning, about that. That's why they kept adding, but it wasn't kept up well enough. So another reason why is the weather on that specific day was very windy and very rainy. It was kind of a rough day. And with big winds and gusts and all that, weather can really push a bridge to its limits. So they think that during that time, it was kind of swaying a little bit, and it caused it to finally just give in one area, and then the whole thing dropped. So that's another reason why, and you can kind of see it if you watch the videos. The helicopter is very gloomy, very dark, and very windy, and when they were going over it for the aerial view, to get an idea of what was wrong with it. So to conclude, it's kind of important to know that in order to take care of this thing, and to show responsibility and understand why, so you can solve that problem later. And I think that the Italian government is definitely doing a good job in taking that step. They talked a lot about it and trying to figure out how to make it a stronger bridge. Thank you very much.